everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Wendy Yee.
And I'm Chris Yee.
And one of the things that used to be a deal was laying out a newspaper. I mean, it still is, but...
I don't think our kids know what those are.
Yeah, that's true. But even layouts these days are now done via computers. And that changed several decades ago. Mm-hmm. But I still remember when I was in college in print, we still would take things and line them up. Mm-hmm. And there's something satisfying about that.
There is.
I think. The idea of, you did it as a kid with a project, right? You made those big science projects, and you put the pictures and the things. Mm-hmm. So that's what this game is, and it was also, this is from the Flat Out Games folks, which they're on fire. I think.
Literally?
No, but they did Point Salad, Cascadia. They have a lot of really good games. So I was very excited about this one. For some reason, the fact that it was real-time eluded me all the way to the time I sat down to play it. I was like,
really?
Oh, it's real-time.
Oh, got it.
That'd be weird to come in with that wrong perspective.
Well, I was like, we're going to be rearranging newspapers. Oh, in real time. Now, it's not as, stressful. Before you turn this off, it's not as stressful as that sounds. Chris will show you.
Fit to Print is a real-time game in which players are trying to fill in their newspaper with different articles, photographs, and advertisements from tiles here in the middle. Players will set a 4-minute timer, grab tiles from the center, flip them up over their desk here, a nice cardboard 3D desk, and decide whether they want to keep this article or throw it back. Players will continue to do this over the course of the 4 minutes, and at some point they will feel like they have so many photographs, articles, advertisements, everything that they need here, to then move on to the placement phase of their turn. While you're doing the layout era, you are now done grabbing tiles. Once you feel like you have enough to fill in the borders of your newspaper for that day, you'll start to place these out. Players will also start with what's called the centerpiece, or a starting tile that has to go over this star somehow or other, with the player's flexibility to choose. That's going to be worth some points for different types of scoring conditions, giving them some direction. There are tiles of a few different types, the first of which are articles. Articles come in 3 different colors. They are innately worth points, 1 point for the smaller articles, 2 points for the larger ones. The reason they come in the 3 different colors is because articles of the same color are not allowed to touch each other. If at the end of the layout phase you found out that you have done that illegally, you're not allowed to move it. You simply have to flip one over, scoring fewer points. Other than that, articles all behave the same way. They're worth points, and they have a positive or a negative, happy or a sad icon on them that you're going to try to balance. The next type of tile are photographs. These photos cannot touch other photos, so same type of thing. If at the end of the real-time phase you realize you've broken this rule, one of the photos must flip over. As long as you have face-up tiles, they'll be able to score based on the types of articles that are adjacent to them. So this photograph here will score an extra point for each blue and green article that it is touching. This one here for every blue or pink article. And some of the smaller photographs will only score for one type of color. The last thing that you have are advertisements. Everybody got to make money. So these advertisements allow you to collect more dollars, and the player in a three or higher player count game who has the least money at the end of the game shuts down their newspaper permanently. In a 2-player game, whoever has less money, if by 5 or more, will give the other player 10 points. So at the end of the layout phase, once players have used up as many of these as they are able to, they will go ahead and count up score. Now this all has to be done within the 4 minutes. The grabbing tiles, flipping them, choosing to keep it or to toss it back, and trying to fit it all within the bounds of your board here. If you end and run out of time, then you just end where you are. If you are content with your board at any point, you grab this tile before the timer is done, and then you'll get first pick of a bonus tile for the next round. When you go to the scoring phase, you're going to go through these steps here. Every article is worth 1 or 2 points, and you sum those up. Photos will be summed up for points. The centerpiece itself, in this case, point for each complete set of the 3 article colors. Or maybe points for each photo above the fold of your newspaper. Get it? Fold, because the boards fold in half. Next up, the white space, punishment or bonus. Players are going to look at their largest area of white space, unused space on their newspaper. Whoever has the largest receives a penalty. Whoever has the smallest receives a bonus. Then you go to the mood bonus. This is where you're going to compare the number of smiley faces to the number of frowny faces. For your imbalance, you're going to lose 1 point for each. So in this case, I would have an imbalance of 4 happy versus this 6 happy, 2 sad. So I would lose 4 points. And then any leftover tiles that you have not placed that were sitting on your board are going to cost 1 point each. You'll basically go through this 3 rounds. As I mentioned, the money here is going to be calculated and totaled up so that whoever has the least is going to be eliminated. Once that's done, Friday is done, you will wipe your board. You will then be playing the next day, which is Saturday. You'll notice it has a larger frame that you're going to use for that newspaper. The third round also has the largest frame, the Sunday paper. You will lay out new centerpiece tiles, and whoever has the first player, the first to finish marker will get to pick one of these first, and you continue down the line based on the number of players, and these must be placed and are going to be worth new point scoring. So that's the basic game. You play the 3 days, and the player with the most points is the winner. There's a few extra little things in the game. You'll notice that first off, on the back of the player aid, you have optional player powers, which are very simple. Like, hey, 2 of your photos may be adjacent. You begin the game with $3 of money, the advertisement revenue. You're going to subtract 1 from your largest white space, no penalty for 1 unplaced tile, and your mood bonus, or your mood penalty, you can have 1 off. So these player powers are very simple. What is not simple, however, are these extra objectives that you can play with. 1 for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You'll shuffle these up and then reveal one of these. And now this is a new restriction that you can play with for each day. This is going to be for advanced play. Tiles may not cross over the fold. They have to be entirely above or below it. Or maybe happy articles may not touch each other. And you see that these have different types of restrictions. Players with the most tiles on their paper earns $4. So some of these are little bonuses as well as restrictions. Players must keep every ad that they flip. So these are to change up the game a little bit. In the back of the rulebook, there are some variant rules as well. A family mode that has a few simplified scoring options. A turn-based mode in which you have a few tiles face up and you draft them in turn order, which is tremendously boring. And then you have a couple of the newsroom bonus where you can have 2 tables set up and you can run back and forth between the 2 tables, which I did not play. But there you go. That is an overview of Fit to Print.
Let's talk about the real-time aspect of it, because that some people hate real-time.
Yeah, sure.
But this one, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was that bad.
Like that's stressful?
Well, I mean, you have a certain amount of time, but I felt like they gave you a good amount of time. The stress is coming from getting it done right, but getting tiles and grabbing tiles and things to, I was always like, oh, we still have 2 minutes left. Great. I've finished my tiles. I'm now going to rearrange newspaper. There's the time of it's there, and I think it's good, but I never... And I play with some people who are not particularly fast at games, and everyone got most of their paper done.
I think there's enough time in each round, is the way that I would put it. It's not that it's not stressful, it's that I think the recommended general range is about 4 minutes per round, right?
Yeah, there's like 3 different possible ranges. We did the 4-minute range.
You can do it a little bit longer, you can do it a little bit shorter.
You can change it. I never do the shorter, because what benefit is that?
I did 4 minutes. You can go shorter than 4 minutes?
Yeah, you could do a 3-minute.
I think it's 3, 4, 5.
Okay,
and we did the medium.
4 was good, though, I thought.
I thought so, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can,
it was enough that it kept you going.
I will tell you, I do not have the spatial awareness I thought I did. Because I'm like, there we go, I'm ready to print. I'm like, poof. Either I got way too many or way too few articles.
I don't know that that's spatial awareness as much as, because you don't know how much you need. I almost wonder if it would be good at the beginning to say, hey, you're going to need... your newspaper is 80 squares bigger. I don't even know how many squares it is. I started counting it halfway. I was like, that's too much work. But you grab stuff, you really don't know how much, if you've grabbed enough or not. But once you play it a while, you have a much better idea. But did anyone ever get perfect?
No.
I look at Wendy because she's the one I assume would have done it.
No, I actually was not that good at this game. Like, I assumed I would be better. But what really got me was the fact that some of the articles were horizontal and some were vertical.
Yes.
And so I grabbed a bunch of stuff, and then I put it on my board, and I was like, oh, that doesn't all fit, because the whole horizontal vertical thing, I was like, I have the perfect skinny piece.
Yeah. I always grabbed a couple of each. I was like, I don't know when I'll need these, but I need a couple just in case.
Sure.
I preferred small pieces.
Yeah, I never ever got close to perfect, but there were definitely times where you have like a 2-hole gap here, 2 here, 2 here.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that's pretty much perfect, right? That's like Mary Poppins, practically perfect, because
Right.
there's no way you could fill that into, well, I mean, there is a way, but if I see that happen, I'll give that person a crisp $20 bill from Tom's wallet.
No. I thought it was neat that the back of the tiles have the print, and you can even
Yes,
use the back of the
I
tile,
like that.
which I thought was a neat thing.
I didn't realize that till my second game.
It's an easy thing to forget
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it sounds
agree.
like it's garbage. But you're covering tiles, and at that one point you're like, well, this is an ad, and there's ads everywhere here. Oh, that's right, I can turn it over.
Right, and the back of it shows the orientation of the tile, because wide or tall makes a huge difference. So you can see from the pile even. I'm looking for tall skinnies. I know which ones to flip over and look for.
Now, when you grab tiles, the rule is take the tile, bring it to your board, look at it, put it back.
No.
Did you ever find yourself reaching out, turning it over, and go, oh, that's right? Then you got to pull it back to your board and out?
I've done it a couple times, yeah.
Because you get so caught up in
Because you're like, I'm so excited.
I really don't think many people at the table did that many times. They just go. I mean, as you start.
Oh, you didn't
calling
bring
them
it back?
No, they
You
just
did?
go. And it's just so. It's like, you know what? It's fine. But it was one of those things that the first time I thought, I'm just going to make a happy paper. That way I don't get those negative points. And apparently, if it's all happy, you lose points as well.
Yep.
Which I said boo to.
Right?
I was like, my newspaper's happy and I'm proud of it.
And you lost a lot of points.
There's a lot of things to balance, right? There's the spatial thing.
Yes.
There's the positive negative thing. There is trying to make enough money that you aren't the laughingstock of the
Right.
newspaper world.
Yeah.
You know, and in a 2-player game, it's done a little bit differently, right? Where in a multiplayer game, if you have the least money, you're just out.
If you're the solo least money.
If you're yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's possible that no one's eliminated even.
Sure, that is
Okay,
true.
yeah.
In a 2-player game, you if there is a difference of $5 or more, then the person in the lead gets 10 points, which is pretty much the game.
I think they lose.
Oh,
I
I
think
see,
it's
I
you
see.
lose 10 points.
Or-
It's equivalent. It's equivalent.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine a scenario in which like that 10 points is not the difference between you and me.
Right. That's a huge difference.
Did you play with the special powers?
Yeah.
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 Did you
Yes.
play with the new rule each turn?
We did, and that just adds more. It adds more to think about and more to balance and more to do.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to mention here. I'm concerned about this game, and I like playing it. I have fun playing it. But I'm concerned about who I can bring this to the table with, because I feel like there is too many things for most people in a real time to keep track of. You cannot have advertisements next to each other. You cannot have articles of the same color next to each other. No, you can't. I don't remember.
Correct. Yeah. Color
Yeah.
cannot be. But you can
Color
have
cannot-
happy sad. You can have sad sad next to each other. You can't have photographs next to each other. There's pretty much
Right.
nothing you can have.
So adds
next to
photos
each
and same.
other.
Basically everything that's the same color you can't have next to each
But
other.
you do want them next to. You want the pictures next to articles of that type. You also are balancing the happy and the sad. You're also, if you're playing with that other extra rule, which I really recommend not, because it just adds another rule. You got to keep that rule in mind. You have your special ability that you may or may not be thinking about. Depends if you picked one that's in the game. And I found that to be interesting. Like, ooh, all these things. I can't keep track of all of them, so I'll keep an eye on some of them. And every once in a while, I made a mistake. I was like, oh, that's right. That picture fits so perfectly. It didn't occur to me. It's next to another picture. That just happens sometimes, or at least to me. You know, and I'm like.
Now I got to flip it over.
But
Flip
I can
something
see
over.
a lot of people being frustrated by that. I'd be very scared to bring this to what I would call casual gamers. This feels like a casual game for gamers.
I will say that playing this game for the first time was one of the most frustrating experiences I've had in a long time.
Really?
Yeah, he got super upset.
I tremendously disliked my first play of it because I just, you know what I mean, the time pressure is enough that you have to keep working quickly because that real-time phase is both the grabbing, estimating how many tiles you have, and then going. And just in that time, trying to finish up, and then when you're done, you look down and you say, 2 photographs are touching. This long, skinny green is actually touching this big green. all of these, oh man, if I had rearranged this down here, I wouldn't have one huge strip of emptiness on the bottom. Saturday newspaper, you have to use the dark grid around it. There are so many things to balance that I found it tremendously unfun, actually.
And you're a heavy gamer.
I'm a gamer. I'm not averse to real-time games. I felt myself gravitated towards this game for all those aspects, and I thought that there was too much, just a little bit too much going on. Playing it again afterwards, I didn't have as much frustration with it, because you kind of get used to it. You can kind of start estimating when is too many, when is too few tiles that you're grabbing. How do you keep track of the happy, sad, all that stuff? But man, that first play is going to be rough, I think, for most people.
I think there's a true benefit to using the opposite side of your centerpiece that doesn't have a power. I know that we had player powers that we started with. Like there's a lot. If you start with too much, I do agree. It could be very frustrating because you'll just forget things. And if that's something that bothers you, start with nothing. Or just don't play it because it is a real-time game, and if it bothers you, don't play it.
I liked it in the fact that, okay, I think it's very fun to be able to grab those articles and place them on your desk. You get that feeling of old school, you know? The whole animal thing doesn't, whatever. But you place it on your desk and you feel like it's good. Also, I love polyomino, and this does something that I like that not a lot of polyominoes do. My biggest frustration with polyomino is once you start placing them later in the game, you're like, oh man, if I wouldn't have placed it there, I could have done this. Well, this one, when you have your articles, you're allowed to pivot. Because like Chris said, there are times when you get there and you have one photo left and you're like, I can't place it there next to another photo. Then you start moving things and everything starts to slide. You slide one bar down, you have that open. And that's fun because everything gets placed at once. And that's kind of satisfying or frustrating either way if you can get that final product and you just look like that's your paper. And it does look like a newspaper. That right there, it's nice. It's that nostalgia feel for me. You look at it, you're like, it looks like I accomplished something. It looks like you're back in whatever your high school class was you did the yearbook,
Joey, don't try the turn-based mode.
What's that?
The turn-based mode, you put a tile on your thing, and that's it. It's stuck there.
I would never, ever, ever, ever play that one. That seems terrible.
That really does sound bad.
Yeah.
The turn-based one was not very much fun.
Oh, that's
Very boring.
Did not know that existed.
I would rather set a 10-minute timer and just not stress about time than play the turn-based one.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. Yeah.
What would you rate it?
Having mentioned how much I really, really disliked that first game, I would have rated it very poorly, right? Tried playing it more times, getting around to it, not walking away from it just angry. I'm still giving it a 5. Even after playing it a few more times and having some successful newspapers that felt like I accomplished a lot, that looked great, that actually scored well, I still don't really care for it. I think that the different objectives of trying to balance the happy, sad, and just trying to get everything done in there ultimately isn't interesting enough to merit how many rules there are. Like you said, it feels like a real-time game, zany, kooky, kind of like, woo, for people who want a heavier strategy game. And I find that combo did not work, which is too bad because the premise is great. The art, the illustration, the graphic design, for the most part, is just wonderful. I love this theme. I love everything going on about it until I start playing it and I realize, man, I'm not having fun even if I'm doing well. So it's a 5 for me.
There we go. I'll give you this a 7. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's funny because the theme itself doesn't do anything for me. I'm not nostalgic towards newspapers. I don't really care. I like organizing things. I like spatial games. I'm actually quite bad at this, which surprised me.
That means I'm worse.
Wait, it surprised you that you're bad at something?
No, it surprised me that I'm so bad at this particular thing. I had assumed it wouldn't be as hard as it is, but I do always stick the photos next to the photos or the pink articles next to the pink articles. Or my stuff's hanging off the board and I'm like, how did it fit? And then all of a sudden it didn't fit anymore. But I like it. I like the real time. I think that adds enough pressure that I can't overthink it. I can't hyperfixate. And honestly, I don't feel like it's that heavy. It's interesting that you guys talk about it's a gamer game. I do agree there's a lot to hold in your head, but I would play the basic version of this with our daughter. I feel like she could probably get it. She would struggle, but I think she'd probably get it.
And this is and that is where the family fell apart.
Oh
go.
my goodness.
Well, Chris is gonna take a while to come back from this. So you might as well go.
His poor microphone. Do you need hands?
He's hiding. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go to I'll do a 7.5, I think. I'm coming a bit higher. And only because I'm trying to keep it straight. Okay. What were we talking about? Fingerprint. All right.
It's at 7.5.
It's a 7.5 because I do enjoy polyomino, and you know what? Real time, I don't think it's that stressful because you're really just grabbing articles and all this. And I think it also gets saved in the fact that it's a 15 to 30 minute game. You know, if you're doing 3 sides, you're doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you mess up Friday, you're going to pivot for Saturday. You know, so I think there's and you know it's frustrating when you're like, I can't put these articles together. But I think it's quick enough to where I can look past that, and I really enjoy the game. I mean, 7.5. I can honestly see it going up because I know people in my game group would like to play it.
All right, well, I'm coming back down again, but I mean, I'm still giving it a 7, but this is very personal. I enjoy it. I think the closest game that the analogy for this game is honestly Galaxy Trucker. There's a lot of similarities between the two games because you're drawing tiles, putting them in there, and Galaxy Trucker, then you watch your ship blow up. This one, you almost watch, you're like, oh, wow, it's super negative. I didn't even consider the negativity. So I'd be very careful who I played this with. I mean, I would not play this with my kids, but I just think they would be very bored with the theme. I like the newspaper theme a lot. Yeah. The animal thing, I don't. It's the animal thing. I can barely see the pictures in it anyway. So I forgot it was about animals when I started playing it. Honestly.
Well, some of the ads are like, see Petalica in concert. Like, there's those little things in there that I was like, that's
so many
fun.
sad.
I did not have time.
All
to
I
read the
saw was
articles.
orange. Like I was like,
right,
orange ad.
There's also
here.
a few weird things when you start picking those main articles that go in the middle, and there's ones that can really burn people. Like there's one that says, if you flip a green tile, you must take it. But it gives you extra points for taking it. You're like, why not? And then later on, you're like, no! What am I supposed to do with these? But then there's things that are nice where they're like, well, you couldn't use all those tiles this turn. Hang on to them for next turn. That works for me. And I'm like, next turn I can go a little slower.
That was a little bit of a low point for me, was that I felt like every time we did a draft, especially in a larger group, there'd be like 2 that everybody wanted, and the rest of them were like, meh.
Right.
And so I felt like I would rather have the same lineup of all good centerpieces instead of multiple lineups of some good, some harder.
That makes grabbing the numbers more valuable.
But everybody could put their centerpieces back in, and you can still draft them. You just draft the same ones twice.
Yeah, but they're all good. Then I won't care.
You don't care about finishing first, but I get that. I just wish some of the centerpieces were more interesting and didn't feel as punishing. Tom, really quick to your point about Galaxy Trucker. I think the reason I enjoy Galaxy Trucker, but not this one, is because there's a lot of layout rules, there's a lot of real-time grabbing, all that stuff. But in Galaxy Trucker, it's all for the pursuit of silly, zany explosions and stuff. And in this one, it's mostly then I start counting all my negative points. And I think it lacks that punchy excitement.
That's funny. I feel the opposite. Galaxy Trucker really frustrates me because I'm like, I barely built a ship and now you're just going to destroy it and I have nothing left. Whereas this, at least at the end of the day, I have a paper.
We'll have to do a showdown between the two someday. Anyway, folks, that's Fit to Print. I'm Tom Vessel.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
And read your newspaper while you drink coffee and wear a fedora.